It was a far cry from the presidential debates we've been watching since the spring. Instead of a gallery of candidates taking pot shots at one another, two GOP contenders sat down Monday for a 90-minute discussion. Newt Gingrich and Huntsman took part in what was billed as a Lincoln-Douglas debate in New Hampshire. The one-on-one debate focused on foreign policy and national security, and both Gingrich and Huntsman weighed in on the threat Iran would pose if it possessed a nuclear weapon.
I believe we cannot allow them to have a nuclear weapon. Therefore, I believe we have to be for regime change. And I would adopt a strategy that was very clear and said, unless they agree to unilaterally disarm their entire system, we are going to replace their regime. We're ideally going to do it non-militarily, but we are not going to tolerate an Iranian nuclear weapon.
So I say if you can't live with a nuclear Iran, and I can't, then you have to say what to do. And I think all options are on the table. And I do believe that we're going to have a discussion with Israel. I don't know when it's going to happen, beyond just the consultations we're having now. I'd say in the next 1 to 3 years.
All right, so for more this morning, we are joined from Washington by Politico's senior editor, David Mark. David, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you.
This came across as a more gentleman's discussion than a debate. Does this style of discussion help any of the candidates?
I think the fact that there were fewer candidates on the debate stage lent itself to a more open format now that Herman Cain is gone and some of the other candidates. I think this kind of one-on-one does lend itself more to an open discussion.
Well, Newt Gingrich has said that if he is the nominee, he will challenge the president to a number of these Lincoln-Douglas debates. Do you think the president, one, would accept, and do you think they would be civil?
I think that a Newt Gingrich, President Obama one-on-one debate would be more like the actual Lincoln-Douglas style standoffs, because there the candidates disagreed. With Gingrich and Huntsman, they were pretty much on the same page on most of the issues.
Yeah, well, tensions between Republican presidential candidates Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich are on the rise. So will this be the norm for the rest of the campaign?
I think it's going to be pretty hard hitting from here on out. Mitt Romney sees Newt Gingrich as his big obstacle in the way of getting the nomination. Newt Gingrich smells blood. He's somebody who thrives on political combat situations. So I think it's going to be pretty tough for the next several weeks or possibly months.
Talk about smelling blood. That infamous $10,000 bet Mitt Romney tried to make with Rick Perry. He's gotten a lot of backlash from this. Do you think it's something that's going to haunt him?
I actually think this is a 3-day story or so. I think it's kind of embarrassing for Governor Romney. He probably wishes he hadn't said it. Actually, though, it's the Democratic National Committee who was really kind of stoking the fires of this story. They're the ones who were pushing this even before the debate was over. So it'll be interesting to see if Republicans can try and use that against Mr. Romney, but I'm kind of skeptical of it.
David, President Obama and Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki met in Washington Monday to mark the end of the Iraq War. Do you think as we see this campaign ramp up, the president take credit for the troop withdrawal, even though the plan was laid out by the Bush administration?
We certainly did hear President Obama taking credit for it. He didn't say this explicitly, but this was a campaign pledge he made to essentially end the Iraq War, which he opposed from the beginning, even though he did support the Afghanistan war. It's not exactly true that all the troops are coming out of Iraq. There's going to be lots of civilian contractors there. There's going to be consulars near the Iranian border in northern Iraq that could very well be targets of Iran. So just because U.S. troops are formally pulling out does not mean it's the end of U.S. presence there.
Well, speaking of Iran, the president also said Monday that the U.S. would ask Iran to return the drone aircraft that was shot down last week. How much heat do you think the president is going to take from Republican candidates over this drone controversy?
This is one area of foreign policy where the Republican candidates really have been able to get in their digs against President Obama. They haven't had a lot of lines of criticism before this because, after all, the president oversaw the killing of Osama bin Laden, al-Awlaki, the other al-Qaeda leader. He's had some other foreign policy triumphs. This is one area where Republican candidates have tried to get at the president, and if the Iranians were to, say, reject that proposal to return the drone, that could be another hot political issue for the Republicans.
No doubt. All right. Well, the Iowa caucuses are 3 weeks away from today, and we do appreciate your insight as we gear toward them. David Mark, thank you.
Thank you.